Hello buddies, welcome back to yet another video in our channel. So today we are going to discuss about the DSLR camera modes. So I got this video suggestion from one of my followers or subscribers, whatever you say. So let's see the available camera modes that are mostly ignored by all of us. So there's a myth like you are a good photographer if you shoot your images in manual mode and all, right? So because of that, these other modes in the DSLR cameras are generally ignored. So let's discuss deeply on the modes in this video. So guys, there are 12 modes in my DSLR camera. It may vary with your camera, but we have a common of 5 modes. So these 5 modes are the most commonly available in all the DSLR cameras, and you have other automatic modes. So of this 5, there is one automatic mode that is completely automatic mode. It will be displayed as a green color symbol on your mode slider. It will be of A+ in Canon and auto in Nikon. So it's a complete automatic mode. So we have that one, and we have a manual mode which is completely manual. Nothing is guessed by the camera, and we have 3 other semi-manual modes which are the program mode and aperture priority mode and shutter priority mode. So we are going to discuss deep on these modes in this video. So yes guys, if you are new to the channel, I am Carrier from India. So we talk photography, filmmaking and other social media stuffs that really help creators like us. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. Hey guys, so whenever I make these kind of basic photography videos, I don't get much views because maybe all of my subscribers and followers are already good photographers. Maybe. But I'm doing these kind of videos for all the beginners out there who are going to watch this video in future to learn photography basics. And so I'm not going to stop making these basics videos. It will be available in our channel anytime. I have already made videos on the basics like shutter speed, ISO and aperture. Those are in this Learn Photography Basics series, so you can just check them out if you have already not seen that, or if you are new to photography as well. These videos are going to help you a lot. Check out. So yes guys, now let's get into the camera modes. So let's start with the auto mode guys. So auto mode is the A, and you have a green color symbol on Canon and Nikon cameras. So auto mode is the mode where the camera does entire work for you. You need not worry of anything. You just need to find a frame, just click it, that's it. So what's so special about auto mode? Your camera is gonna find the exposure of the frame that you are actually setting. So your camera is gonna decide ISO, aperture, shutter speed, whatever it is. So nothing is in your control. So there comes an issue here. Just one of your friend who has a DSLR camera just gives to you and asks to take a photo, and he keeps the setting in auto. So now when you click the image, it's already totally bright, yet you have a flash. Have you experienced that? So even you have good amount of lighting, when you're capturing your image in your auto mode, suddenly the flash pops out. That's quite awkward, right? That's the problem we have in our auto mode. So your camera decides the exposure itself, and if it feels like there is not much light in your frame, it's gonna pop out the flash. That's one weird thing that your camera is gonna do when you are shooting in auto mode. The second weird thing is like when you are shooting in low light, your camera is gonna click shaky images. Because it's fully automatic, it's gonna adjust its ISO, aperture and shutter to bring that light on your frame. So if you're shooting at low light, there is a possibility that your camera decides to reduce the shutter maybe to 30 or 20, and if your hand is not stable enough to handle that low shutter, it's really gonna look bad in your photos. And that's why when you shoot in your auto mode in your DSLR camera, sometimes in low light conditions, the image is gonna look really shaky. So that's the second problem we have with our auto mode. So we have these kind of problems while you're shooting in auto mode, and that's why your camera has many other different auto modes. That is not one auto mode, we have many other different auto modes. So if you see in your camera mode slider, there is a partition between these manual modes, that is the 4 manual modes, and all the other auto modes. Have you ever seen that? There is a square kind of partition between the auto modes and the manual modes. That shows that only those 4 modes are manual and all the other modes are auto. So if you see in Canon or Nikon, whatever it is, you have many other auto modes like portrait, landscape, macro, sports, night portrait, scene detection modes. There are many such auto modes like this. This may vary from camera to camera, but these modes are really going to help you when you are shooting specific conditions. So if you want to shoot an action kind of image, like something is flying in the sky, some birds or something, or you want to capture fast action, then you can go with the sports auto mode, where you have set the camera like I'm going to take a fast moving object and hence I need a higher shutter speed, so don't go low with the shutter speed kind of. So your camera is going to keep the shutter speed to a greater extent and it's going to play out with ISO and aperture. And if you go to the portrait auto mode, your camera is going to decide that you're going to take a portrait and you need more background blur on your image, and it's going to keep the aperture wide as possible to create that shallow depth of field. So likewise, you have many other modes like night portrait modes or no flash mode, where the camera decides not to pull out the flash in your images, and many such auto modes are there. You can just try out all those auto modes. I'm not going to explain all those things deeply because those are just auto modes. So maybe as a beginner and you just bought your DSLR, you don't know how to work with ISO, aperture or shutter or other settings available in the DSLR, you can go with auto mode and other auto modes like portrait, macro or sports, whatever it is. But I would highly recommend, to become a good photographer, you are going to use those 4 manual modes out there. Not just the only M mode manual mode, you have to use the 4 manual modes: aperture priority, shutter priority, program mode, manual mode. These 4 modes are really going to help you a lot to just become better in your photography. So now that we have completed the auto part of DSLR, let's move to the manual modes. So there are 4 manual modes, basically: the program mode, the aperture priority mode, which is just mentioned as AV in Canon and A in Nikon, and shutter priority mode, which is mentioned as CV on Canon and S on Nikon, and finally you have the manual mode. So first let's start with the P mode, which is the program auto mode, where your camera is gonna decide the shutter speed and aperture with the amount of light that is available on your frame. So here the ISO is being selected by you. So by the way, if you want to know what is ISO, just check out this video. So yes, this mode is chosen when you have to just point and shoot something, you have to quickly snap a picture, you can go with this program mode. So in this mode, your camera is going to decide the aperture and shutter based on the intensity of light available on your frame. So if you're capturing something that has good amount of light, your camera is going to increase the aperture and your shutter speed is going to stay safe, that it is not shaky, while your aperture is going to be increased so that it balances with the intensity of light. While if you're going to take an image at low light conditions, your aperture is totally going to wide up and your shutter is going to be reduced a little, but it's not going to make shaky images. It's going to balance that image according to the intensity of light. So yes guys, based on the light available, your camera is going to decide the aperture and shutter speed. You can help your camera by changing the ISO based on the lighting conditions, so it will just adjust accordingly to capture the best image possible. I won't recommend this mode for all your images because we have the other 3 manual modes that are really going to help you a lot to learn a lot and also master your photography skills. So now let's see about the shutter priority mode, which is the S mode in Nikon cameras and TV mode in Canon cameras. So in shutter priority mode, your camera is going to decide the aperture and it's going to give you control of the shutter speed. So before proceeding, I will just make it clear, in all these 4 manual modes, that is the program mode, aperture priority, shutter priority, manual, in all these 4, the ISO is under your control. So camera is never going to decide the ISO for all these 4 modes. Okay, fine. So now let's continue with the shutter priority, where as the name says, you have control over the shutter. Camera is just going to decide your aperture. So now I'll say when to use this mode, when this mode is really going to be helpful for you. So just imagine guys, just imagine a situation, you're just walking on the streets, taking some images of still objects or just people on the streets. So where you don't need much speed on the shutter, right? And suddenly you just see a bird, a beautiful bird just passing on the street. It's very beautiful and it's flying on the sky. So what are you gonna do? If you just keep changing the manual settings and bringing everything, aperture, shutter, everything, and you're just gonna shoot that bird, it's already gone. You're already in manual mode, you have to change everything for that setting. Maybe if it's flying, it will have a full backlight, so it will be overexposed. When you move from street kind of setting, manual settings, to the sky setting, it's really going to be overexposed, right? So at that time, shutter priority mode is really going to help you a lot. So you are in your manual settings. suddenly you saw a bird. You need to capture that at high shutter. Just close your eyes, move to the shutter priority, increase the shutter, and your camera is really going to help you a lot to measure the required aperture for that image. Just move to the shutter priority mode, capture that bird in shutter priority mode at high shutter. Every camera has that special slider for the shutter speed adjustment. You can just slide it down, capture your bird at very fast pace. So now that we knew how to or when to use the shutter priority mode, some of the drawbacks you have is like you suddenly take a portrait image in shutter priority mode. Your aperture is gonna be guessed by the camera and you cannot expect that shallow depth of field and all, right? So this is one drawback on shutter priority mode. Anyway, you are not gonna use the shutter priority mode to capture a portrait, right? So that's why I'm just making it clear when to use this modes. Okay, now let's move to the aperture priority mode, which is the AV mode in Canon cameras or A mode in Nikon cameras. So aperture priority, in this priority mode, the aperture is under your control and shutter is under the control of the camera. So based on the light available, your camera is going to decide the shutter speed. As I said earlier, ISO is under your control for all the 4 modes. So we have just got it clear, right? In this aperture priority mode, the subject isolation, that is the isolation of the subject from the background, that background blur or the shallow depth of field is under your control. So just if you see, you can make good portraits with the aperture priority mode. The one problem you're gonna have in your aperture priority mode is the shutter speed. Shutter speed is under the control of your camera, and if it's low light, if it's a low light condition, your camera is gonna decide to reduce the shutter, which may affect the clarity or sharpness of your image. Your image is gonna be shaky in too much of low light conditions. That's the only problem that you're gonna face when you're shooting in aperture priority mode. So now that we have seen the aperture priority, shutter priority and program auto mode, the 4th mode is the manual mode. So for manual mode, what are you gonna do is you have complete control of everything: shutter, aperture, ISO, and all the other settings as well. So you're gonna decide the exposure triangle and you're gonna decide the amount of light you need in your image. If you want to have good background blur or the subject isolation, you're going to widen your aperture, or if you're gonna capture a fast action or a fast moving object or a bird or a sports kind of images, you are going to increase that shutter speed to capture that crisp or frozen motion. Or you can also play with your shutter speed to capture long exposure photographs like this, or you can also go ahead and play with your aperture to capture good portraits with good amount of background blur like these. And yes, you have a complete control of your camera. That's how manual mode is gonna help you. So my suggestion is go with the manual mode, just learn everything while in those situations where you have to suddenly shift from one setting to another. As I said earlier, to capture a bird, you have to change the settings from that you had for a street to a bird photography kind of settings. You can directly go with the shutter priority mode. And on the other hand, for portraits where you have good lighting, you can go with the aperture priority. You can just decide your aperture and your camera will decide the respective shutter speed. And that's how these modes are really going to help you a lot. So that's it guys, we have discussed all the modes available in the DSLR camera, that is the auto modes and also the 4 manual modes. So I hope you got a clear idea when to use which mode, so that it will help you to just improve your photography skills. So that's it guys, that's it for this video. So there are many other options like metering modes, adjusting your exposure and all. So in further videos of this Learn Photography series, we'll just see all about them. So yes guys, thank you for watching this video. If you like this video, do smash that thumbs up button and let me know in comments if the video was helpful. And if you're new to the channel, do hit that subscribe button, and you can just click on the bell icon to get regularly notified whenever I make a video. So that's it guys, that's it for this video. We'll meet you in another video. Until then, it's your Carry, you're signing off.